allowing authorities to ban foreign media deemed harmful to Israel's security until the year of 2027. First adopted in April of 2024 during the Israel-Hamas war, the law targeted outlets like Al Jazeera accused of spreading propaganda for Palestinian terrorists. Let's listen in.
ש1,000 ערוצי ג'יהאד ייסגרו ואמא יהודייה אחת לא תבכה. עודני סבור שהיה צריך ללכת עם החוק הזה עד הסוף, להעביר אותו במלואו, ואם בג"ץ רוצה לפסול שיפסול, ויראו אזרחי ישראל מי דואג לביטחונם ומי דואג לחופש ביטוי של ערוצים ג'יהאדיסטיים. אדוני היושב ראש, יש בחוק הזה מספר הישגים, יש פה גם מאבק בקליטת שידורים של ערוצים עוינים דרך לוויינים, ויש פה גם קיבוע מציאות של מאבק בערוצי הג'יהאד.
The extension allows the Prime Minister and Communications Minister to halt broadcasts, seize equipment, block websites and prevent satellite transmissions in Israel and in the West Bank. A single favourable security opinion is enough to enforce a ban which lasts 90 days but can be extended. Critics say the law violates press freedom and petitions have been filed with Israel's High Court of Justice. Media freedom rankings have fallen sharply since the war started, highlighting concerns over censorship and civil liberties in Israel. Andrew, Israel says this law is about national security. Where is the legitimate line here between protecting national security and suppressing independent journalism?
Was tension in democracies like the United States and Israel and others between, on the one hand, freedom of expression, freedom of press, etc., and on the other hand, when a country is in a war, and Israel certainly is, both literally and in a broader sense, metaphorically, in the region, then censorship becomes an issue. And if you think about the various domains of battle in wars, air and sea and land, there's also media now, information, cyber, those sorts of gray zone areas. And this has a long precedent in Western-style democracies in times of war, trying to conduct the battle in that space as well. So I see this as entirely consistent with that tradition. Are there tensions between that and freedom of the media? Yes. In a democracy like Israel, where various Israeli constituencies challenge this politically and legally, yes, they will and they should. But it is neither unprecedented nor unreasonable for a state under siege to restrict and restrain media that is putting out very unfavorable messages, sometimes untrue messages, sometimes propaganda on the part of the quote-unquote enemy.
Now, this law was introduced as an emergency wartime measure until April 2024. What does extending it until 2027 mean about Israel's long-term approach to media control, particularly as we have elections coming up next year?
Well, there's a very real danger that it's a classic slippery slope. What is put in place in an emergency is then extended on the basis, perhaps a realistic basis, but perhaps just a putative or fictional basis, that the war is still somehow ongoing. In a worst case scenario, this could become permanently embedded in Israeli law, which would really tip the balance between media freedom and wartime necessity, in favor of wartime necessity and closing down those media outlets. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that the Israeli democracy and the Israeli legal system is robust enough that that will not happen. But it is a very real concern, and Israelis need to be on guard against factions within the Likud and its associated parties that would like to push for more censorship at the expense of civil liberties.
Indeed, and this law was seen as banning Al Jazeera, a news site which of course is funded by the Qatari government first of all, but second of all has been critical of Israel's actions in Gaza throughout. Is this about specific security concerns or discomfort with critical coverage of the war and its in Gaza and of course the actions following it?
Well, critical coverage is one thing, but it can blur very quickly into enemy propaganda. And it has to be said, I think, that Al Jazeera often strikes the appropriate balance, but doesn't always, like all major news outlets, it doesn't always strike the appropriate balance. It's not surprising to me that the Israeli government, especially this particular Israeli government under Netanyahu, is very suspicious of Al Jazeera and would like to restrict its ability to shape Israeli public opinion, especially perhaps the Israeli left and the Israeli Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship, to prevent Al Jazeera from shaping the narrative and the discourse in those segments of Israel's population. Not surprising, I think perfectly legitimate in the context of a hot war. I think a dangerous possibility exists that this will persist beyond the hot war into the peace at the expense of Israel's democracy.
Andrew Latham, as always, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We now move on.